Celia.
Sarah, on this threat of the government shutdown if Congress doesn't secure funding for this wall, how is that not a concession from this White House that Mexico isn't actually going to pay for this wall and American taxpayers will?
Again, this is something the president's committed to. He's committed to protecting American lives, and doing that through the border wall is something that's important. It's a priority, and we're moving forward with it. Noah?
But he's not saying that Mexico is going to pay for it.
He hasn't said they're not either. Noah?
They have.
On the,
They have.
Thank you. I think we've had enough outbursts from that side.
on the president's ban on transgender service in the military, how close is the White House to sending guidance to the Pentagon on that? And the policy itself, how much discretion will be given to the Pentagon on implementing it?
When we have an announcement on that, I'll let you know, and we'll be sure to answer those questions at that time. John, Phil?
Sarah, you're talking about a comprehensive immigration fix from Congress in a span of 6 months, and much to the president's frustration, Congress hasn't been able to really do much at all this year. What gives him confidence that they're going to be able to act on immigration? Has he spoken to any congressional leaders since making this DACA decision?
He's spoken to a number of leaders, but hopefully, as you guys all know, they just came back from a 3-week vacation. I think that they should be rested and ready to take on some big challenges that America faces.
Why put the fate of the lives of 800,000
Because it's Congress's job to legislate. It's not the president's job to create law. It's not. It's Congress's job to create legislation. I think that's something we all learned in 8th grade civics. I know I certainly did, and I think that every member of Congress should know that that is their duty, and we're asking them to fulfill it. It's pretty simple. I think that the American people elected them to do it. And again, if they can't, then they should get out of the way and let somebody else take their job that can actually get something done. Major.
Several Senate Republicans have sent signals to this White House. One, don't make a recess appointment because we're not going to allow it. 2, there's not going to be a confirmation hearing if there's a new Attorney General nominated. There is a signal being sent, don't do what we fear you might be contemplating. Can you, for the betterment of the Senate Republicans who are working with this White House on a lot of issues, put to rest once and for all the status of the Attorney General? He's not going to be fired. There's not going to be a need for a recess appointment, and this issue can be laid to rest for the country and for Senate Republicans who appear, based on their public statements, to be anxious about this prospect.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure how many times you have to lay an issue to rest. I've tried many times.
No, but when you don't say the president has confidence and the president says time will tell, as he said earlier this week, I'm only telling you what Senate Republicans who are in a position to have to deal with this are saying.
And I've answered your question, and yesterday you probably saw a statement come out from here that was more fake news from the Washington Post on the fact that we were considering a recess appointment. I think that sums that up pretty clearly.
According to the Washington Post, the president tried to change the narrative about what went down in John Jr.'s meeting with the Russian lawyer. Can you address that story and tell us, did the president really try to do that?
Look, the statement that Don Jr. issued is true. There's no inaccuracy in the statement. The president weighed in as any father would based on the limited information that he had. This is all discussion, frankly, of no consequence. There was no follow-up. It was disclosed to the proper parties, which is how the New York Times found out about it to begin with. The Democrats want to continue to use this as a PR stunt and are doing everything they can to keep this story alive and in the papers every single day. The president, the American people, they voted America first, not Russia first, and that's the focus of our administration. John?
Can you clarify the degree to which the president weighed in?
He certainly didn't dictate, but he, like I said, he weighed in, offered suggestion like any father would do.
Did he not know what the
Stephen,
intelligence was?
I will follow up on that. Was he aware at the time that Don Jr. had a meeting that was based on the pretext that he would be promised information that was negative about Hillary Clinton when he suggested that the statement only say that the meeting was primarily about Russian adoption policy?
Like I said, the statement that was issued was true and there were no inaccuracies in the statement. I think what the bigger question is, everybody wants to try to make this some story about misleading. The only thing I see misleading is a year's worth of stories that have been fueling a false narrative about this Russia collusion and based on a phony scandal based on anonymous sources. And I think that is, if we're going to talk about misleading, that's the only thing misleading I see in this entire process. You guys are focused on a meeting that Don Jr. had no no consequence. When the Democrats actually colluded with a foreign government like Ukraine, the Democrat-linked firm Fusion GPS actually took money from the Russian government while it created the phony dossier that's been the basis for all of the Russia scandal fake news. And if you want to talk further about a relationship with Russia, look no further than the Clintons. As we've said time and time again, Bill Clinton was paid $500,000 to give a speech to a Russian bank and was personally thanked by Putin for it. Hillary Clinton allowed 1/5 of America's uranium to reserve to be sold to a Russian firm whose investors were Clinton Foundation donors, and the Clinton campaign chairman's brother lobbied against sanctions on Russia's largest bank and failed to report it. If you guys want to talk about having relations, which you seem obsessed with doing, look no further than there. If you want to talk about somebody who's actually been tough on Russia, look at President Trump. He wants more fracking, more coal, more energy, a stronger military, a stronger defense. Those things aren't good for Russia. I think the distinctions are very clear, and you guys want to create a narrative that just doesn't exist.
Sarah, two questions. One, following up on Major with TRICARE and the transgender community. There's been a concern from the transgender community before President Trump became President Trump that if Obamacare changed to Trump care, they were wondering if they were able to get the procedures to help them complete their phases of becoming the other sex or the other gender. What do you say to those people who are seeing this now with this ban in the military? What do you say to transgender America who wants to continue with the change? Maybe some who already had part of the change and want to do the change and are scared because of what's happening now, not for certain. What do you say to transgender America?
As I've said before, and I'll try to make this clear, this was a military decision. This was about military readiness. This was about unit cohesion. This was about resources within the military and nothing more. Guys, I really don't have anything else to add on that topic. As I do, I'll keep you posted. But if those are the only questions we have, I'm going to call it a day. But if we have questions on other topics, I'll be happy to take it. Kristen.
The president vowed to treat dreamers with, quote, great heart. How is this move treating them with great heart?
I think by allowing an orderly process to take place. You know, there's a lot of people that I've seen attacking the president for not showing the level of compassion that they feel like he should. To me, the most heartless thing that I've seen all day today is that Democrats like Nancy Pelosi are using this decision today for fundraising while the president's trying to fix this situation. They are politicizing an issue instead of actually doing their job. If they would spend less time fundraising and more time focusing on solutions, we wouldn't even be in this problem in the first place.
On the president's decision, where all of this stems from, Dreamers, supporters of Dreamers say this is cold-hearted. You're leaving the future of 800,000 people uncertain, up in the air. What's your message to them?
It's not cold-hearted for the president to uphold the law. We are a nation of law and order. And the day that we start to ignore the fact that we are that, then we throw away everything that gives these people a reason to want to come to our country. If we stop becoming the country that we were envisioned to be, then we throw away what makes us special, which makes America unique. This president's not willing to do that. The previous administration was. This one isn't. But we want to have real solutions. We want to have laws that address these problems, but it's Congress's job to legislate, not the president's. And we actually want to uphold the Constitution, and I think people across this country should be celebrating the fact that they have a president that is standing up and upholding the Constitution as he was elected to do. Alex.
A poll released by Fox News on Wednesday said that 56% of Americans think the president is tearing the country apart, and approval rating polls are usually in the 30s. How do these poll numbers affect how the president governs?
I think a lot of these polls are the same polls that predicted that Donald Trump would never be the president, and he's sitting in the Oval Office as I stand here. So I don't have a lot of faith in a lot of these polls. I think if you look at what he's been doing this week, particularly in terms of focusing on unifying the nation, on Hurricane Harvey recovery, talking about tax reform, an issue that's got very wide bipartisan support. The numbers, frankly, that we are focused on and that this administration cares about aren't poll numbers, but we care about 94% of Americans who get assistance to file their taxes, that the majority of Americans thinks the tax code is unfair. and that 70% of individuals in 10 key states support broad-based tax reform. The numbers that we're focused on have to do with actual problems that Americans are facing. The numbers that we're focused on are the ones that actually impact day-to-day life for all Americans. That's what we're focused on, certainly not silly polls that frankly weren't much use to us in the election, and certainly I don't think are now. Francesca?
Thank you, Sarah.
And I want to leave you with just one last thing before I close out on an important development. You guys love to talk about Russia, and there's been nonstop coverage. And the one day that there might have been a question on Russia, there wasn't. Often that we have a lot of media with Russia first, and but today there was public testimony that further discredited the phony dossier that's been the source of so much of the fake news and conspiracy theories, and we learned that the firm that produced it was also being paid by the Russians. This is yet the latest piece of evidence that vindicates what the president has said, that this is a witch hunt and a hoax. And it's a shame that the president and the country have had to go through this charade continually, and hopefully this will help us move forward in that process. And with that, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.